introduction at the end, that would be great. So welcome. This is the February For Our Kids monthly meeting of Meet the Expert. And just to get things started, I want to begin by acknowledging that the land we gather is the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the shared traditional territories of the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to live and learn on this traditional territory. So thanks everyone for joining us this evening, and I know that we're getting a few regulars now, but just if anybody's new, a little bit about For Our Kids. So For Our Kids is a national organisation. And we're a network of parents and grandparents across Canada fighting for climate justice and a better world for our kids and grandkids. So we're almost entirely run by volunteers, and each local group is self-organised and everybody works on what they feel pertinent issues in their area. And then sometimes we join together for national campaigns as well. And since November, the North Shore group have been running this Meet the Expert series. So our plan was just to reach out and connect with more people and to learn more about some environmental topics together so we can all help each other out and learn a bit more about important issues. So at the end of this, please do stay online, and we're going to have a discussion with our speaker, and then you can tell us a bit more at the end how you'd want to be involved, or you can go to our website and just click the join button, and then you'll automatically be invited to all the rest of our meetings. So, and if you feel like you want to become more actively involved, then please do that, and we're always open to more members and more people joining our team. Okay, so there's two parts this evening. So first of all, I'm going to do a quick intro of our For Our Kids team, just so you know who we are. And then I'll introduce our speaker, Jennifer Johnson, who is running her own solar energy company here on the North Shore. And then after Jennifer's spoken, there'll be plenty of time for questions and a chat, and either it's Jennifer, or if you've got any feedback or comments to For Our Kids, then that's very welcome too. Okay, so quick introduction to the For Our Kids team. So we've got, I think we've got there's 6 of us. So with myself, there's Marion and Celine and Josh and Jill and Julia, who I think are all here. Yep. So we're now meeting sort of every week and running these monthly meeting sessions and working on a whole lot of other issues. So if anybody wants to get involved on any level, then please do let us know. Okay, so, and we are very happy to be joined with Jennifer Johnson this evening. So Jennifer is the founder of Solar Connect, which is a residential solar energy company based right here on the North Shore. And she set up this company and now leads every aspect of the business, including the design, the engineering, the permitting, the procurement, the installation, the health and safety, and the commissioning, which I think involves climbing up onto people's roofs, which you can tell us all about. And so previous to setting up Solar Connect, Jennifer worked in the UK for a bit for a solar company and was part of UK's progressive change to renewable energy. And she has a master's degree in clean energy engineering from UBC and in quantum physics from Oxford University. So with that introduction, I'm really pleased to hand over to Jennifer, and we're going to hear all about solar energy in BC.
Great, thank you, Lorna. So I'll just share my screen here. And please tell me if you see my presentation.
Yep.
Yep, okay. And then I'll try and make it. No, it doesn't want to go full screen. So we'll have it be that. Okay, so thanks very much for the introduction. Yeah, I'm just going to cover climate action and specifically solar energy in BC. So we'll do a quick intro about myself and my company, and then I'll dive into the solar industry and talk a little bit about solar industry trends and do a country comparison, and then more specifically about the BC growth of solar, barriers to uptake, and what's next. And then I'll get into climate change and climate action. So I'm going to cover a little bit about Government of Canada's greenhouse gas target, and then how that relates to solar energy, and then talk about my company and the sustainable activities that I have implemented. So about me, I'm Vancouver born and raised. I studied chemistry at UBC, and then I crossed the pond and studied and worked in the UK for 10 years. I was a climate change researcher at Oxford University. And then I moved to London and I worked as a sustainability consultant there with like developing sustainability strategies and plans on carbon, water, waste reduction for really large global companies like Coca-Cola, Danone, Greenpeace, things like that. And then I actually got a great opportunity to be a sales engineer for a startup solar energy company. And that was right in the middle of the big explosion of renewable energy in the UK. They had a legally binding target and then a subsidy to reduce carbon emissions, and it just took off there. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. And then I moved back to BC and I completed my master's in clean energy engineering. And then I started my company called Solar Connect. And a little like side fun fact about me is that when I was at Oxford, I was the boxing captain there and I won national boxing championships. And it's my favorite thing to do is box. So my company's mission is connecting homeowners to cleaner and more sustainable energy. And basically right now, we mainly design and install solar energy systems. So you can see on the left there, that's one of my customers named Mike on the North Shore. He wanted to replace his 20-year-old natural gas heating system with a solar electric heating system. And we did exactly that. And he's a very happy chappy on his roof. On the right is a much larger project. I was the design engineer for the Chilcotin First Nation solar farm. And that's Dolly. She's a project manager that I worked with on a daily basis. This project was pretty amazing. It's 3,500 solar panels. Generates enough electricity for 30% of the electricity for the nearby communities. And what was the most remarkable thing about the project is that the Chilcotin First Nation were completely involved. So the construction team was entirely First Nations people from the community. And so we helped train them on solar energy and then also the construction. So they installed the entire system themselves, which is the only type of project in Canada where that's ever happened. So it was just a truly remarkable project and I'm super proud to work on that. So a little background about the solar industry in case some of you don't know. You probably have a little bit of understanding around this, but I'll give you some stats and facts around it. We've had an incredible global growth over the last 10 years. So solar has gone from 40 gigawatts to 580 gigawatts, and that's a 1,350% increase. Solar makes up 23% of all renewables and accounts for 4% of global electricity production now. So basically, it's the cheapest and fastest growing power source in the world right now. And the reason mainly is twofold. The cost has dropped 78% over the last 10 years. So a 30 solar panel system used to cost $60,000. It now costs $13,000. And there's an enormous drive to reduce carbon emissions, which I will touch on a little bit later. So just a little bit of background on, so lots of people seem to think BC doesn't have enough sun. And so I wanted to just provide some stats and facts around this and do a comparison with the UK, which has less sun, but a lot more solar energy systems. So in the UK, 1 kilowatt of solar energy will produce 825 kilowatt hours. So one kilowatt, you can think about that as the system size. So 1 kilowatt is about 3 solar panels, and 825 kilowatt hours is about, in BC, is about a month worth of electricity. So over in the UK, there's one system for every 7 homes. So it's very popular there and very visible. In Canada, across Canada, on average, we have 1,300 kilowatt hours per kilowatt. So we get a lot more sun here in Canada compared to the UK. And across Canada, we have one system for every 19 homes. And in BC in particular, we still get more sun than the UK, a little bit less than the overall, which is about 1,064 kilowatt hours. But we have very few solar energy systems. We have one for every 470 homes. So it's a little bit, it's a bit confusing. We get 30% more sun than the UK, but we have fewer systems. So there's some clear barriers to uptake, which are kind of getting in the way of solar becoming the norm here. In the UK, the electricity is less expensive, or sorry, here it's less expensive. So it's 15 cents per kilowatt hour here, whereas in the UK it's more, it's 20. There's a substantial upfront cost. So if you want to install a solar energy system, you need an upfront cost of $15,000 to $20,000, $25,000. And we're dominated by the BC hydro grid here. And it's not supported by government. There's 0 subsidies or income tax credits, which then again doesn't help with the upfront cost. So for example, the income tax credit, for business, you can actually get a business income tax credit where you can claim your solar energy system against your taxes and then you'll pay less tax. But for some reason, there's no, you can't do that just for a resident, like just a homeowner. So we're actually trying to work on that a little bit. There's a group called North Shore Climate Hub, and which we started up last year, and hopefully coming out of that, we're going to start a renewable energy group, which will try and kind of and get the federal government to actually allow an income tax credit for solar so that the upfront cost at least comes down a little bit. So even with that said, we've had exponential growth after over the last couple years. So from 2018 to 2019, there's been 100% growth. And basically, in terms of where it's all going, and especially for BC in particular, because that's what we really are interested in, the costs are still dropping. And then, like I was saying, there's kind of alliances coming together to lobby governments to help make solar more affordable for everyone. There's little wins in places like District of North Van. I helped to basically have building permit waived for that. In City of Vancouver, you don't have to pay the building permit either. It's slowly coming, and as it becomes more popular, there will be more weight behind being able to shift government's perception and trying to help people purchase solar energy systems and reduce carbon. So I do think there's more 100% growth years on the way. This is a little bit of like just following the graph, but also the fact that I started the company in 2018 and my number of inquiries is just exploding. So lots more people are getting interested in this. I think in what I do hear from my customers is that they are fed up with the building of new hydro dams and LNG plants. And so they're just taking action into their own hands. They want to generate their own electricity, which is lower carbon than hydro. And they want to be able to make that investment and know they're doing something. So on to kind of climate change and climate action. I'm not sure how many people know about Canada's greenhouse gas target, but I'll cover that just to give a basic overview of what has been set and how we're doing. In 2016, the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate Change was developed and published, and there's a target was set to 30% CO2 reduction by 2030. So I've highlighted that in 2016 where we are, like we're at 700 megatons CO2. And as you can see, it's just gone up since the target has been set. So this sort of enrages me a little bit, and I did learn about this when I was doing my master's in clean energy engineering. We had a policy class, and we dove deep into what's actually happening and what's actually being done. And so after kind of figuring this out, I did some calculations before I started my business to see, well, what can I do? Because clearly, instead of kind of being annoyed at the government, I wanted to do something myself. And so I figured out like Canada's electricity mix is a combination of, it comes from coal power plants, natural gas, and hydro. And so there's a measure for each of these that has been done that calculates how much carbon per electricity produced each one of these types of power plants has. So for coal, they emit 1,000 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. It's a lot. Natural gas is 500 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. And then hydro emits 270 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. So I figured out that, and this is totally unrealistic, but I wanted to know what impact would we have if everyone switched to solar, which emits 40 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. And we would save 1 trillion kilograms of CO2. And we would completely obliterate Canada's greenhouse gas target, which is to cut 220 billion kilograms of CO2. And so this kind of inspired me. Okay, like I already knew and had an idea that I wanted to start a solar energy company. I knew that it was growing in BC, and I wanted to connect homeowners to cleaner and more sustainable energy. And so that's what kind of got me going. So from that, I developed a sustainable business model, which has 3 pillars. And these are just the typical 3 pillars of any sustainable business model. But so my company is trying to stay within the biophysical capacity of our city, country, planet. We're trying to maintain and protect quality of life and the values that we aspire to live by. And economically, we want to ensure adequate standard of living is provided for all members of society. So the ways in which we do that, first of all, is by climate action. So from all the projects we've installed so far, we've eliminated 600,000 kilograms of CO2. And other ways in which I do that, I really am conscious about what products we purchase and install for the systems. So I did a lot of research, and because I had that sustainability background, I did a lot of research into manufacturer sustainability plans and what they actually do. And then I found this amazing solar scorecard, which is done by Silicon Valley Toxics Coalition. And they basically rate the manufacturers based on different things, like you can see there, based on their water use, based on workers' rights, health and safety, and based on emissions. So we only use solar panels, which are from like the leaderboard there. I also, every project has an end of life plan. So, which details like, it is a long way away, 25, 30 years, but we have to start thinking about these things now, and customers need to be educated about what's available now so that we push it in the right direction. So, you might be interested to know, like Canada has no dedicated recycling facility for sustainable manufacturing. So you can't recycle solar panels in Canada at this moment. Then the first step is for Canada to classify them as electronic waste, and then that bans them going to landfill. And then once that happens, everything sort of falls into place because legally you have to recycle them. So the EU has something like this in place and has had it in place for quite some time. So our option right now is to work with a company called Dynamic Life Cycles Interventions, and they have an office in Vancouver. And they collect the end-of-life solar panels and they ship them to facilities in the US. And the US has an association called Recycle PV that recycles the panels. This is not ideal, shipping solar panels to the US, but I think that at the end of life, the solar panels for our projects, that'll be in 25, 30 years. By then, I think we will have adapted this end of life plan, and I really do think that Canada will have a recycling facility in place by then. But as of now, this is what we have to offer. Just touching also on the different pillars of sustainability and how I don't think like climate action is really the end all be all. I think it actually is all interlinked together. So I've always like I've always worked in quite diverse workplaces, and I've always found that where you have men and women of all different levels, plus people from different cultures and backgrounds, this is where you get the most innovation, and you get the most sort of, I guess, like it's just a good, efficient, innovative team. And so I don't need to say much more about this. This has been covered so much lately, but it has to be said that my company isn't just one type of person from one background. We're from loads of different backgrounds. We're male and female. We challenge each other a lot. And I find that to be excellent for innovation and for guaranteeing customers the best solution for for their energy problems. We're also activists. I've always been an activist all my life. And so this is me and my husband and my dog at the Greta March. And I think I truly believe in the fact that if you believe in something, you want to show up and stand for something and demand change together. And having more and more people stand up for climate action is so important, because it's those big movements that actually force the government to make changes and force the change altogether. And then finally, I always am learning, collaborating, innovating, and trying to make our offer better. So right now we're sort of specifically focused on residential solar. And that is because right now in BC, that is starting to, there's kind of a tipping point there. But I'm also very interested in low carbon homes altogether, low energy homes. So I am a passive house designer as well, and I've taken all the courses in that. And it just helps me to understand, because as we do get more customers that are building passive house and low energy, I can then design the solar energy plus storage plus mechanical system that all works together to then create this low energy net zero home, which is quite amazing. And those are really my favorite projects to work on because they are so innovative. The other things that I do, I volunteer for David Suzuki Foundation as a renewable energy expert, and I've done some talks for them in their Charged Up campaign. And I said about the North Shore Climate Hub, which just started up. Well, it's been going for a really long time, but they kind of had like a revive like late last year to try and bring in more people and get some momentum going. And then I was lucky to be a Women for Climate mentee, where I was with 30 other women who were all trying to take climate action in different sectors. So I learned a lot from that. And then, of course, I go to the typical solar energy conferences to learn about the latest in solar technology and carbon reduction and things like that. So that's a bit from me on climate change, climate action, and solar in BC. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has them.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm super excited to hear you also segue into the activism image. That's great. Thank you for this overview. Now, if you have questions, I saw a few questions popping up in the chat, which I will be asking shortly, but you can either raise your hands. So if you go to the chat, you'll see a function on the bottom with the three dots that will allow you to raise your hands, and then you can just ask the question or you can pop it in the chat. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to start off with the first question I think would be interesting, is to learn a bit better about BC Hydro. What would be the case to actually install solar? What would be the business case here? Why would they want to do this?
So in terms of, so what's quite interesting actually is BC Hydro had a net metering consultation today, and they polled 1,000 net metering customers on why do they install solar. You know, and 97% of the net metering customers are solar customers. And the number one reason was to do their part for the environment. And it far outweighed saving money and the business case, which I found really interesting. I do find that my customers are very environmentally driven and anti large hydro dams and this and sort of thing. But I also have the business case conversation with them a lot, like every single time. So a lot of people that end up going solar, they're quite a small segment right now because they're in their homes and they will be there for the next 20, 30 years. And so when they make the upfront investment, their payback is in 8 to 10 years. So all the electricity savings basically add up until about 8 years. And then after that, they don't pay electricity bills and their solar is just generating their electricity. Mm-hmm. So the business case is an 8-year investment business case.
Yeah, for those individual households. Now for BC Hydro, if they are continuing to provide clean, quote unquote, energy, why would they consider installing solar panels? I can think of answers like we can't build dams until the province is full with dams, right? And there's a lot of oppositions. Right, yeah. So what would be the case for BC Hydro to actually consider this and get into it?
Yeah, it would be that point. Like they have a surplus of electricity from the dams right now, a big one. So it would be that point of which they don't have the surplus anymore. The population is growing so much and they literally can't get an environmental permit to build another dam. So I don't know because I don't evaluate BC Hydro. Like what would make them tip, because I think it's so far in the future that BC Hydro will then be called BC Solar.
Yeah.
It won't happen. Yeah. So I don't put my eggs in that basket. I think it's from a different perspective.
Gotcha. Now, there's also some questions about the battery technology. I think we're all curious about that. So what's happening with the battery storage technology? Also, personally, I would be interested about the lithium mining that is necessary to create those batteries. What can you tell us about the batteries technology?
Yeah, so on that slide where I showed the amount of carbon per kilowatt hour for coal and hydro and solar. So like, for example, solar is 40 grams of carbon per kilowatt hour. Right now, lithium ion batteries, which are the most popular battery that are starting to kind of get installed a lot more, they're around 200, 250 grams of carbon. So I'm not a huge promoter of that technology yet, because I have obviously done my research into like where those numbers come from, and the mining of the lithium comes from salt deposits in mainly South America, where you need an incredible amount of water and acid to mine that. And I personally don't think it's a sustainable process right now. My hope is that in the next 5-10 years, as it becomes more popular and how we are having all of this explosion of electric vehicles, that more research is done into those carbon emissions, and then and basically more policies put around the mining of those. Mm-hmm. So does that answer your question? Like I think that lithium ion batteries actually emit far too much carbon right now. And I think that because solar is so much less, I think it's probably a good option to go solar and then connect to the grid until you can switch over and have it be a low carbon solar plus storage situation.
Rather than having a battery storage technology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's costs about the life of a solar panel. Like how long can you use a solar panel? What's the life rate of that? And what else was there?
It's 30 years.
Yep.
So the warranties, they last, depending on the products, is 25, 30 years. But the systems can last 40, 50 years. It's just with every year that you have a system, it degrades a tiny little bit, because there's like the transfer of electrons in the solar panel. And so it degrades by 0.5% each year. Mm-hmm. So you'll have less and less electricity coming from the solar panel. It's very minute year to year, but over the course of 40, 50 years, it drops like 10%.
Yep. And now what's the all-in cost of solar in North Vancouver per kilowatt? Sorry, what's the kWh? Yeah.
Oh, per kilowatt hour?
Yeah, kilowatt hour.
So yeah, it depends on location, but I would probably say it's around 9-10 cents per kilowatt hour, and per kilowatt, like per solar panel kind of installed. Right now you can get down to $2, $2.50 per kilowatt.
And how much is a kilowatt again? Like that?
Kilowatt's about 3
big, right?
Solar panels. Yeah.
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 Okay. And so some questions about legislation and the BC PACE program. Does that ring a bell with you? That is a question from Constance about the BC government is preparing legislation to institute a BC PACE program like the one that's been very successful in the USA since 2008. Do you know about progress being made?
So the PACE program is in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to know if it's coming here. Is that?
Yeah, like it sounds like there is also a BC government, and if Constance wants to allude to that, this sounds to that there's also talk at the BC government to prepare legislation to institute a similar program.
I haven't heard of the BC government preparing to do anything. Okay. Unfortunately, but I can look specifically into that and get that back to that person.
Yep. The question came from Constance. We'll send off the questions to you. And there's also some questions about your services, and that is, do you also offer residential solar hot water systems?
No, we don't. The reason is, again, I looked into it. I did a lot of research around it. Those systems actually are very inefficient and leak. they tend to leak a lot, and putting a system which has expanding and contracting pipes of water on a roof is just, I decided not to pursue that kind of stream of work. What I have done with lots of customers who have been sort of interested in that, because BC did start to go down that path a lot about solar thermal a few years ago. It's much more efficient to have a solar photovoltaic system put on your roof, which has no chance of leakage and lasts longer, and then use that electricity to heat an electric hot water tank in your home. So that's a much more efficient, effective, cost-effective way to go than solar thermal.
Yeah. And there's another question about how you work. Do you offer residential solar hot? Oh, sorry, that's the same question. So, are your residential projects all connected to the grid?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We register with net metering.
Yeah.
You can, I've had some inquiries around off-grid systems, but we specifically work in the Lower Mainland. So we're small, like I'm a small outfit here. And so the off-grid systems are typically outside of the Lower Mainland, and I do have some contacts that I put them in touch with. Off-grid systems are very expensive because you need the solar plus storage.
There is a question about the wattage of each solar panel that you install. There's a couple of people asking that.
The type
The
of
wattage, like how much?
Oh yeah. Oh, like how big the systems are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, typically we'll install anything from 5 kilowatts up to 10 and even 15 kilowatts. It all depends on how much electricity your home requires. So if you have a high efficient home, and you don't require that much electricity, you'll just get enough solar typically to cover your electricity for the year.
Yeah.
Whereas some homes, when they are bigger, like
so it looks like they want specific wattage. Claudia and Judith, did you want to just ask that question directly?
Yes, I do. If I could, I'll just go first. Jennifer, my panels that I've had installed, they are 370 watts each, and I'm asking, what are the watts of your panels?
Yeah, we have a selection.
Okay.
So yeah, we can go up to 400 watts, and those are commercial size solar panels, the larger ones. You must have had the larger ones installed.
So if 400 is commercial, what would you say is the largest that you do for residential?
400 watts. Sorry, I just mean by so the solar panels are categorized into two categories. You'll have a residential sized or a commercial size. Typically for homes, we do go with the residential size, but if someone has a massive roof and can get those really big solar panels on their roof and everything fits nicely, we'll use the commercial sized ones, which are up to 400. The residential sized ones, I don't go anything less than 330 watts.
Okay, thanks.
Does that answer it?
Thanks.
Can I just add something on that? Because I'm just installing on an island on the north in the northern Gulf Islands 435.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not very big. That's just for residential. So the new generation are already 435 and above.
Yeah. So sorry, you're installing. I didn't hear some of that. You're installing on an island.
Yeah, we are installing 435 wattage without the panel being bigger. In contrary, it's actually smaller. So
you have a residential size, and how large is it dimensions?
So I think just for the sake of the discussion to keep it a little bit broader, and maybe I can suggest that the two of you get very specific in an offline conversation about the watts, because there's a few other questions I think that would be interesting for everyone to learn a little bit more about, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
happy with specific questions.
Yeah, I'll be happy to connect you. So there is, for instance, there is questions about the source of information that you used about the emissions. For instance, John is asking that he was shocked to find that hydropower are over 25% of that from coal power. Can you say more what that data is from?
Yeah, I can share that data. So
Yeah.
the Climate Change Institute in Switzerland, which has done a lot of intensive data over or research over the last 5 years into the real emissions of large reservoir hydro dams. So what wasn't getting captured before and what BC Hydro does not report is when they dig the massive hole, there's a huge release of methane. They do not account for that. And so the latest research has been looking into that. Mm-hmm. And that is where I got that data from.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, right? There's much more to it than just the generation of the hydro. Yeah. And now the project
if I can ask about that, so that would be not the operational cost, but it would be the installation.
Yeah, so
CO2.
all of those grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour are done as per like a life cycle analysis. So
okay.
It's the installation, the manufacturing, the transportation, the life use of it, the end life use of it. It's kind of that entire life cycles.
And now I assume that you included that also for the solar technology, right? When you showed the carbon emissions for the solar technology, it also includes everything that's been used for it.
Yeah, and there's an institute in the US called the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which you can look up and you can look into these numbers a little bit more. And so I didn't calculate the solar stuff myself. I just used the data, which is available from a lot of different research institutes, and I use that. I don't calculate those things myself. The information is available. Yeah.
Does it help? Does it answer, John?
Yes, thank you.
Great. There was a question from Lorna about at the beginning you spoke about the project that you did with First Nations, and that looked amazing. I thought so too. And now are there more projects like that happening, or can we get more projects like that happening, which are collaborations between First Nations and local organizations installing renewables? I think there's a couple of big projects happening up north. Maybe you have some knowledge on that.
So just in terms of BC Hydro had a program called the Standing Offer Program, which allowed large solar farms like that to be constructed, and then they basically bought the electricity. They canceled that program a year and a half ago, with no view to kind of editing it or starting it up again. So it's very disheartening, and I hate sharing this news. But large projects like that are very rare now. You'll have a First Nation band that will specifically target BC Hydro and specifically push them to allow them to do something like that. And that might be some of what you've heard in the news around projects like that. But now there is no specific program for them to do things like that. Mm-hmm. So what I've been working on a lot with First Nations is energy efficient homes. And so their homes I'm working with Takla Lake First Nation up there in their community. Their homes are falling apart. And so they're getting grants to build new homes with that are low carbon, efficient with solar. And so that's how I've kind of kept working in that area, because I do really love working in that area a lot.
But not a repeat of the project that you've been doing.
No, I wish.
Yeah. It's kind of shocking how little subsidies and how little support there is for this technology.
On that point on one of my slides is like BC Hydro just dominates.
Yeah.
And it's put this it's put out how it's clean energy and how it has brainwashed. It was a big shocker for me when I came back here from the UK and started looking into everything and doing more research around everything. And I was like, oh, wow. But I think lots of people are coming around to getting that.
Yeah. And now there's also a question, and I think we'll have time for maybe one or two more questions. It's about the collective solar panel installation. It was actually brought up in a talk that both Julie and I attended. The community members came together, hired an expert to plan and implement single home solar panel installations. Have you heard about anything similar in BC? Because it seems like there could be a cost saving, right, to get one expert involved and several families paying for that.
Oh, right. So
this was a collective solar panel installation.
So like a community solar panel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my friends worked up in Nelson on a project like that. There's another one in New Westminster. They're quite rare here. I did find that in the UK and across Europe, they're much more common. But I think they're kind of rare here because solar isn't really a thing yet. Right? So I think as it becomes more of a thing and it becomes more, I don't know, more recognizable and people want to get together and do these things. I am working on one project, which is a new build, and there'll be 3 families in it. And so they are all splitting the cost of the solar to have their own connection into their electrical panel. I wouldn't call that community solar. It's just a nice project where people are starting to come together. And I've seen that a little bit more.
Yeah. So it sounds like solar energy still has ways to go in BC compared to the rest of the world. But there's hope with the prices dropping so significantly and the growth doubling each year. Yeah, I think that's it for questions. I want to hand it over to Celine to wrap us up.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you very much, Jennifer. This was a lot of great information, and thank you everyone for joining in the interactive chat, asking lots of questions. Much appreciated. I think everybody learned from that. So we would love to get feedback also on this session, if the format is great for you, and also if you can share your ideas of future topics, or if you'd like to get involved, or if you have a speaker in mind that you'd like us to bring forward, please get in touch with us. You can also continue to learn about what's coming next, going with our For Our Kids North Shore webpage. It's very simple. You click on the I'm in button, and that's where you'll be able to get our updates to know what's coming next. We'll also post an email after this with the recording for the session, and you'll also have those details available there to also register and continue to get the updates. And on that, the next update is for next month. We'll have our meeting on March 16th. Please mark your calendars. You'll also receive the update on that. But this one will be about old growth forest. And this is going to be with Torrance Cost from Wilderness Committee. Old growth forest on March 16th. So please don't miss that one. Should be pretty interesting. For those who don't know us too much, Lorna did a little bit of an intro about For Our Kids. And I know some of us are becoming regular, so you might have heard that already. I'll just do a quick recap if you're new to this group and you'd like to know more about what For Our Kids is about. So we started here on the North Shore in July 2020 with a town hall on green and just recovery with 3 speakers. We had Jonathan Wilkinson, Bowen Ma, and Jessica McElroy. And since then, we have collaborated with a number of political campaigns at local, provincial, and federal levels. We're working on a number of things. One of them is the Canadian Net Zero Climate Accountability Act. So this is going to be the standing committee, going to be with the standing committee within the next few weeks, and with other Canadians, we do think that it could actually get a lot better to meet objectives in reducing the GHG emissions to stand a chance to stay under the 2 degrees Celsius. So we are going to send out a petition shortly for North Shore residents to urge our own MP and Minister of Environment and Climate Change to turn this into a more action-oriented class, so really world-class act. And that's also why it's really important that you look for the email with the recording of this session, or you go on the website and push that button, I'm in, because we would really, really like to also get your voice heard and sign this petition. So more will come on this information on the website, but do think about this and go back and take a look when you can. Other things we are working on, the divestment campaign, which you may have heard about, where Canadians across Canada talk to their banks about divesting from fossil fuel investments. So this campaign kicked off on January 29th, and we are continuing until Earth Day on April 22nd. We're also planning a number of plastic actions across the North Shore, old growth forest campaigns, meeting MLAs to confirm how we can support their green agenda. So you've heard a few of us hosting tonight to get Jennifer to talk to us. We're a small but mighty team. As you can understand here, there's really a lot to tackle. So again, thank you for your support and coming in and interacting and learning and raising awareness around you as well. Please talk about these sessions around you. And if you'd like to get involved or again have ideas of topics you'd like us to tackle, let us know and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much, everyone. And with that, I wish everybody a very good evening and until next time.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Great seeing y'all. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Jennifer, I was wondering if I could ask you a question.
Sure.
Just quickly. I've got a biology background, and so I'm impressed with the methane release from digging the big hole, from digging a dam. I'm wondering what the methane comes from.
Well, the decomposition of the matter.
Of the plants?
Or the plant matter, the wood matter within the hole.
Okay, so you have a great big hole, and then a lot of plant matter gets washed down the river and settles at the bottom and rots and without any oxygen.
No, it's the actual. You know how hydro actually has to dig around, like at Site C. I don't know if you know much about Site C.
Not as much as I should.
Yeah, I try to avoid it because I'm so angry. But they dig around that land, and every time they dig, they're releasing methane from the ground. of what they're digging, and then they dispose of that.
But why is there methane in the ground?
Well, being a quantum physics,
Okay.
I don't exactly know. But
Anyone else know?
Pardon?
Anyone else know?
Laurie, it's mostly the decaying plant matter that they inundate. Yeah. And that slowly leaks out into the air. There's quite a lot of it. Basically, the wood is atrophied and melts or decomposes, and lets off methane.
Yeah, and when it rots without any oxygen, you get methane.
Yeah, and if there's boggy, turfy areas, which there are around rivers, those also decompose and release methane.
Okay.
Sorry, Jennifer, but I too have a physics background, but I mix some chemistry into it.
I thought that's what I said as they dig the decomposed. Yeah,
Site C actually tried to knock down the lumber in advance rather than have it rot under the water, because what happened is under the water, the roots let go, and you can get these trees coming up from 50, 100, 150 feet, and they actually injure boaters. They've been known to kill boaters by basically acting as spears popping up from the bottom of the reservoir. So for BC Hydro actually lumbered the place beforehand, but they left all the roots and they left all the soil, and that rots. There's a big research effort going on at the moment to determine the actual GHG footprint of dams, and it's much bigger than anybody lets on. And hydro is particularly good at not letting on anything that's not in its favor. So
yeah, and it's very difficult to measure that methane that's coming from digging of the reservoir and the releasing of the decaying matter.
Yeah, their complaint by BC Hydro is, look, it releases anyway over time, as we're just accelerating the process. So, and other rubbish like that. So,
yeah, it's a rubbish.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, sorry there, Jennifer. You had basically said what Owen said as well. So I just didn't listen carefully enough.
But thanks, Owen.
Thanks.
So Jennifer, there was one more question, more info on new, more efficient solar panels. So maybe we can, if you have some of that information, include that in our follow-up email.
Sure.
Seems like some people would really like some technical information on the solar panels and the new generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you
Thanks,
again.
everyone.